Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. Bit of a ditty there. Yes, it's the first of a series of evening shows on a Monday. I have said I'm going to be trying to cut back on the quantity. Let's try and focus on the quality, and it's always quality when I've got some familiar faces in the house. A godfather who might make you an offer you might not refuse. And of course, James Rowe, all the way out, just around the corner in Amsterdam. But before we get into this one, let's see this music intro, just for a few seconds. Yeah, so let's welcome everyone on this Monday evening show over here. I've kind of coined a little segment name. It's called the Cannon Project. I'm not sure where that name came from. Cannon Project sounds like there's some incoming money, 150 million pounds. Oh, we've spent that already. We've spent it already, haven't we? Guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification button so you can receive all the latest, almost the latest news on Cannon Fodder TV. LTL, it's been the longest time. How are you?
Well, I'm just back from Ireland. I've had a lovely break over there, and a big shout out to Tim Hogan from Scariff in County Clare. He's allowed me to join in with the coaching of the under 13 hurlers, and they're through to the final. And I was loving it over there, but I've come back to the UK for a short period of time, and then I'll probably go back and enjoy myself over there. But yeah, we were all watching Arsenal, and if you could imagine, it doesn't matter what part of the world you go. Certainly Ireland and Clare and Limerick and all those places. There's loads of Arsenal supporters, and you wouldn't be short of a few gooners around you. Let's put it like that.
Tel, are you leaving these shores permanently because you've got some black bags behind you? Are you about to, or is it like your winnings?
I've just come in out the garden. I've just seen that. I've no idea what it is. I've no idea. I just live here.
Right. I know the feeling. James, how are you, my friend? How are you?
Very well, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me on again. A very, very busy time with the interviews for The Secret Footballer. And a recent interview with Arsenal legend Alan Smith was very well received. So absolutely delighted.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. So like I said, actually before we went live, I did say to the guys, let's try and keep it positive. But with the positivity, there has to be some realism. I mean, you can't fake it. We're bottom of the Premier League. Worst start 67 years. 3 games in, no goals scored, 9 goals against. LTL, what's going on, man? What's going on?
Well, somebody put up on Twitter, just if you got it on an iPad or if you got it in the newspaper, if you got the EPL table, just turn the newspaper upside down, and we're top of the table. So that solves that one. Do you know what I was saying to Tim? Actually, he said it's really good because he said I can see you being very phlegmatic about these defeats and not panicking and not sort of worrying. And I suppose when you've been following the team for as long as I have, we've had these blips before. The one that was really bad was around about the mid-70s. The 71 double team broke up, and we teetered on the edges of relegation. So we've been here before, and I personally feel that we will get out of it quite comfortably. There's too many good players in the team, but it's certainly not guaranteed that we'll have the same manager by the end of the season, because I think if Arteta unfortunately loses the next 3 games, the clamour from the fans may be absolutely deafening. But I think if you look at it, the club are looking way beyond just Arteta. They've obviously given Edu a lot of money to spend, and there's a big backroom team there supporting Arteta. Personally, I don't think they're doing a very good job for him. But let's keep it upbeat. We've got some promising young players, but this is a long haul job. This is not a quick fix, and we've made some very, very bad buys, but like I personally don't think Pepe was a good buy at all, especially the kind of money we paid for him. But let's hope that some of these boys, this Belgian young fella, looks good. So let's hope there's some good buys coming here, and we'll pull out. But you're talking about a 2 or 3 year rebuild to put us up in the top 2 or 3. I would have thought.
Before I go to James, let's also say something very, very quickly. You know, I mean, I was very, very young, the 1971 double winning team there. But I do remember when I did the player profile on Alan Ball, he arrived in 1971, and he did actually say that he could see the 71 double winning team being broken up and not improved. And so, like you say, you know, in the 70s, was one of the worst times they had, because from 1971 to 79, it was barren years. So what I'm trying to say is, it's like we've never learned the lesson. We have not learned the lesson. We've not brought in any real quality players in the transfer window. I mean, you could talk about Aubameyang, maybe Lacazette, but the players who have been brought in, they're just there to beef up the squad, not improve the first team. We never learned the lesson. History is repeating itself again, Terry. Repeating itself
It
again.
is. It is, and unfortunately, I think there's too many cooks that are spoiling the broth. If anybody goes on the Arsenal website, there is an enormous amount of backroom team that are supposed to help Arteta, and I think he's been pulled this way and that, so that our tactics keeps changing. We go from a back 3 to a back 4, then to a 5, and all the early promise has dwindled away, and it's not good. It's not looking good. And listen, I want to keep it upbeat. So let's hope that he can turn it round. But he's got this match against Norwich, and then one against Burnley, and then Tottenham. That's 3 games that could save his bacon, or could finish. It could be the end of him. And if he goes, I suspect most of his team that don't seem to have done him any favours will go also. But he is tactically, he keeps changing now, and that's always worrying. And of course, I think we might have spoken before about the query over his man management. He definitely seems to. He's a young manager, and he doesn't seem to be able to handle some of the young characters that are in his team. There might be challenges going on in the dressing room, and we've all talked about Saliba being the ideal man that we'd love to see back there. 6'4", big guy. He's got rave reviews ever since Arsenal have signed him, and yet he's deemed not ready. And then we go out and sign a 6 foot no inch centre back who's very tasty, Ben White. Nice player, but he's not going to dominate these big forwards, these Lukaku type guys. And you wonder what kind of. I can imagine what Arteta's trying to do is have ball playing centre backs. Well, I'm sorry, when you've got a big centre forward up against you, you need to match like with like, and he really isn't doing that. And well, listen, let's keep it upbeat, and let's hope he can turn it around.
James.
Hi. I think really this whole summer transfer window, a sign of the times, with fans thinking that their opinion really counts, with judging players on YouTube, FIFA, and Championship Manager, wanting to be in the know, especially the younger generation when they've never spoken to any kind of professional. A football club which has made it a rod for its own back, and seems to be the tail is wagging the dog, so to speak. In the case of Ben White, Leeds were quoted 25 million last summer, and they said no, thank you. We'd rather spend that 25 million on improving our squad, which they did. Lukonga has scored 3 goals in 80 appearances. Aaron Ramsdale apart from one loan spell at Wimbledon, he's been relegated at every football club he's been at. And our last deadline day signing as well. 2 years ago, he was playing for Sint-Truiden in Belgium. Now, I looked at the current squad of Sint-Truiden in Belgium, and it's full of Japanese players. So they've struck gold, haven't they? By having a couple of Japanese players in their squad, one of them going to play well for Bologna, and all of a sudden is good enough to play for Arsenal. Alex, you make a great point about not learning from our mistakes. We did exactly the same. Gabriel has one good season for Lille, bang, 50 million. But nobody could tell you that before Lille, Gabriel played for Troyes and played for Dynamo Zagreb. All of a sudden, he's good enough to play for Arsenal. The same with Pablo Mari. He was playing for NAC Breda here in the Netherlands a couple of seasons ago, was made captain, even to his own bemusement. He even said to the manager at the time, Stijn Vreven, why are you making me captain? I have no command of the local language. How on earth can I address Dutch players? But yet he was made captain. We are really making a rod for our own back, and we can't buy our way out of trouble. We think that we can. Well, Leeds tried to do that, and they called it chasing the dream. We are not in Europe for the first time in a quarter of a century this year. It should be a really hard period of self-reflection. I see Arsenal fans expecting European football in top four. We've had our time in Europe. As painful as it is to say it, and I said it at the end of last season, we have had our time in Europe. We spent 25 years trying to win a competition. We didn't win one, where participation in the Champions League appeared to be more important than actually trying to win the thing. Our neighbours, only 8 kilometres away from us, Chelsea, who we used to be streets ahead, and now cities ahead of us. I don't know about you guys, but my perspective on the Champions League has changed. Because if I see our London neighbours winning it twice within a decade, and we've been in it for 22 years and we didn't win it, then it makes me think, well, they've done something that we're never going to do. And it kind of sours it a little bit. And I just think, yes, it's important to remain positive, but the problems at this football club are not going to be fixed by one signing and by one sacking. Terry makes a great point about assistant managers. And I've interviewed a few in my time through the years. And I wanted to draw on an anecdote I received from João Rosso, who was assistant to current Portugal manager Fernando Santos at Sporting Lisbon. And he was telling me that as an assistant under Fernando Santos, the first thing that he learned was how to behave as an assistant, because there are some assistant managers who want to be a little bit too present, want to delegate too much. And he learned, how clarity is so important. He also told me as well, as an assistant manager, you have to provoke the manager into taking a different approach. And if you don't help him, you are leaving him on his own. And I just think we have really made a rod for our own back. And I really cannot see where this magical season of every single player that we brought being absolutely world-class, my manager, my G, all the street talk. In the real world, this football club is going through the motions. And it hasn't hit rock bottom yet. And we just have to ride it out and see where it lands.
Terry, there's been some talk over the last, I'll say, 24 hours in regards to there being a pre-agreement between the club and Antonio Conte. And I when I went live yesterday with Ralph, I said that it would appear that there was a pre-agreement, but since then there's been an intermediary or a representative who's well connected to Antonio Conte, inverted commas, an agent, who has said that it's not true. But if in the eventuality that the club actually says, we've had enough, can a new manager really solve the problems at Arsenal, Terry?
Well, first of all, are they going to keep going with Arteta? I mean, I personally think if you look at that the sort of Cronkies have taken this sort of cheap option, really, which is instead of Arteta, they could have gone out and got a very good, experienced manager, and they could have then, but that manager would have demanded a massive war chest. So if you combine a massive salary for an experienced manager plus a massive war chest, the Cronkies have gone for the cheaper option, and it hasn't worked. And that's why I think they've opened up the sort of coffers now. I think we're one of the highest. We've paid the most money of any Premier League team in terms of getting players in. But it's like throwing bad money after good money. It's all a bit going a bit Pete Tong, you know. And I suspect, I mean, listen, any organisation has a backup plan. If things go wrong, they must be looking at alternatives. But I bet they hate the thought of getting in somebody like Conte. Conte may well turn things round short term, but he will want a massive war chest. He will be getting in some decent big defenders in there, maybe a world class goalkeeper. You know, so it's to shore things up. Don't let, as George Graham showed us, don't let in goals, and you can do all kinds of stuff if you get 1-0 wins. But I think this is played out really at boardroom level and Cronky level. Actually, well, not even boardroom, because I don't think the boardroom are doing anything except collecting their money. So I think the Cronkies are not happy. They know that if Arteta loses the next 3 or possibly 4 matches, the sort of furore that the fan base is going to create may make it impossible for them to keep Arteta there. And then they really have caught themselves in a very difficult situation, because if they were to get somebody in that was a top manager, they've spent an awful lot of money on players that manager might say, I don't rate them. Why have you spent this money? So it's all coming to a head. It feels as though this is where, do you know what? If we were to keep losing and really get down to a situation where we're fighting for our lives, the question would be, what do the Cronkies do? Do they sell up, cut their losses? In fact, there won't be any losses, because the club's value has skyrocketed, even though they haven't done much of a job. So it's possible that might happen. Everything's in turmoil now, and I'm just sitting back, not predicting anything, because it all depends on the next few games. And if we keep losing, then there has to be a plan B, and they must have that ready to go. And they probably have a plan C and a plan D. They're obviously investing a lot of money in Edu, and I think he's probably safe. I have heard fans say, oh, maybe it's all Edu's fault. But I would suspect he's quite safe, and that Arteta may be the fall guy. He may be the fall guy. I do think, just briefly, that it's a shame they changed Arteta's role. While he was coach and was able to get the coaching sorted out, we won the FA Cup. That's no mean feat. We beat Man City on the way. We did really well. But as soon as they've made him manager, it gives him a bigger brief. And that he seems to have lost his focus. And of course, he's under Pep, he was a coach, and maybe that's his forte. And maybe this business of making him manager, it doesn't seem to have helped. And certainly, as I said earlier, his man management of some of our players it looks very wanting. I mean, he must be winding them up. I mean, or his tactics are bad, because he's making a Aubameyang look bad. He's making Lacazette look bad, and I don't know. It's I'm trying to keep it upbeat, but you know, we've got to play it out. It's like a poker hand. You know, you've got to keep playing this hand out and see where it goes. And I'm sitting back and smiling away and saying, surely, after all these years, having never been relegated, surely we can't end up with Arsenal in the bottom 3 at the end of the season. I don't think that'll happen. I really don't. I think we'll probably be mid-table. I can't see us getting into the top 5 or 6 or even 8 now, because we're already dropping points. So it's an interesting moment to be an Arsenal supporter. That's the best way I can say it.
James, are there any positives? Are there any positives, James?
Well, I think the young players. I think Smith Rowe. I think Saka. I think they've done so well to come through the youth setup and make their debuts. I'm reminded of the time I spoke to Sanchez Watt, and he was telling me that when he was at Arsenal making League Cup appearances, there was a nucleus of young players that didn't want to go out on loan. They wanted to stay training with the likes of Nasri, Fabregas, and Van Persie, whereas he went out on loan to Leeds, was really well looked after, and went on to have a good career. So I think it's the positive is that there is a pathway to the first team, but also to be the team that spends the most amount of money in a transfer window. That was the remit as to why Arsenal moved to the Emirates. So they will claim that there is a success in that respect. But the characteristics, I mean, there's talk of Conte. The characteristics of these players let Arsene Wenger down, let Unai Emery down, are letting Mikel Arteta down. Why on earth are they going to pull a rabbit out the hat for Antonio Conte? You've got to look at the characteristics of the players that we sign. We sign players who are dogged by disciplinary issues, but are overrated, that command too much of a fee, where other clubs get rid of them and we rolled out the red carpet. And again, we need to start identifying players better. And it starts at the top. Obviously, Conte is sanctioning these moves, but there's no inner fire from him to say, right, I want to win trophies. I want to put things in place to win trophies. It's very interesting when you hear people talk about Chelsea and people talk about, oh, if it wasn't for Abramovich, they wouldn't be in the position they are. And they claim that they were a nothing club before Abramovich arrived. That's not really true. If you look at how well they played under Glenn Hoddle, for example, you think of, it's not just the money, it's the fact of who Abramovich has got behind the scenes. And we've got someone who was general manager for the Brazilian national team. And that's a hell of a difference from going from that national team to club level. And yes, he was a former player, but Arsenal fans seem to love that, a former player coming back to the club. But sometimes it doesn't always work out. Timing is everything in football. And when I see and when I speak to legends such as Bob Wilson, Kevin Campbell, and also my latest interview with Alan Smith, he was telling me about a similar position that Arsenal was in when he could have signed for Chelsea, could have signed for Manchester United. He chose to sign for Arsenal. Why? Because he looked at the squad, he looked at the players coming through, he looked at the manager in George Graham, and he thought that George Graham and Arsenal were going places. And he was proved right. And he said that to be the striker in those main years of winning league titles, winning FA Cups and winning a European trophy was a massive honour for him. And you look at the characteristics of a player like Alan Smith, where coming from non-league, signing for Leicester. When he arrived at Leicester, he was told he's going to be in the reserves. He's not going to play because he's come from non-league. And then a new manager in Gordon Milne comes in and his career really starts to take off together with Gary Lineker. Our fans are also culpable in the plight that we are in. Our fans are also culpable. I really do believe that fans are also culpable, especially the younger generation who bay for blood, bay for that new player, worship influencers that really in the grand scheme of things have no dealing with professional football whatsoever. I've never spoken to a professional football manager, certainly never played the game, but yet they're taken as gospel. Arsenal fans seem to, who's the next player? Who's the next player? Who's the next player? When you've got to build a nucleus. We talk about Saliba. Do you think Saliba is really unhappy right now? I think he's as happy as a sandboy. Why? Because he's playing for the biggest football club in France under an excellent football manager with excellent footballers. And I said before the season started, guys, he's going to have the season of his life. And it makes me really curious as to how he was only good enough for Arsenal's under-23s. But yet he's fast-tracked into the first team of the biggest football club in France. People will always say about Paris Saint-Germain and the money involved and the investment. But if you look at the history of Olympique Marseille, if you look at winning the Champions League, how many league titles they've won, how many French Cups they've won, their rich history. Saliba is going to have a brilliant season, really, and as Guendouzi will as well. But we seem to let that go. They're going out on loan. But you see with Reece Nelson's come to Feyenoord, and I hope that his attitude is spot on, because Feyenoord are in transition. Feyenoord are not as polished as Ajax and PSV. I don't think he's going to play every game. So if his attitude is not spot on, then he's not going to have a very good loan spell. And if you think about the development of players, there was a great quote from Arsene Wenger from many years ago, which always stuck with me. Which was, a loan spell is the last part of the puzzle, the last part of a player's development, learning the responsibility of what it means to go out on loan. I recently, not recently, a couple of years back, interviewed Jordi de Wijs, who's now captain of Queen's Park Rangers. He came through the youth setup at PSV. He went on loan from PSV Eindhoven to Excelsior Rotterdam. And he said it made him the player he is today, because he came into a dressing room of players fighting for win bonuses to be able to pay their mortgage and toughening up in man's game. We don't seem to have any structure as regards to loan. We don't seem to hand pick the team that are players going out on loan. You certainly don't know the reason why it's going out on loan. Daniel Ballard helps Blackpool to get promoted. And what is his reward? Goes on loan to Millwall. If I'm Daniel Ballard and I see that they signed Ben White for 60 million, I know that I'm never going to be an Arsenal player. I know that I'm never going to play for Arsenal. But yet, the other night, he's playing international football. People love to say, oh, Ben White's also an international. Well, so is Daniel Ballard. And Daniel Ballard has got more international football experience than what Ben White has. But yet, Arsenal choose to go out and spend 60 million. I don't know why. Really, I don't know why. And we are making a rod for our own back. And chickens will come home to roost. And it will not be fixed by a signing or a sacking. As Eltel says, we just have to play this hand. We just have to ride it out. And when it's all finally over, first and foremost, admit the situation we are in. And secondly, try to deal with it.
Tell the current director of football, Mark Overmars. There's been some talk about Ray Parler saying that he's spoken to Mark Overmars and he would be willing to come back to the Arsenal. Could a Mark Overmars change everything at Arsenal?
Well, I've heard quotes that he definitely wasn't coming back, but they might be a month or two out of date. And of course, you can't be saying that yes, you'd happy to come back while you were being employed somewhere else. Do you know what? I can't see any real change. I do, I love Mark Overmars as a player, and I know James will know even more than us. I mean, he's done a wonderful job at Ajax, Amsterdam, but I can't see anything really changing until we get an owner that thirsts to win trophies. And at the moment, our owner is an absent owner. Don't be in any doubt about that. And he wants to get us up into the top four so that when the Super League happens, we're perfectly placed. So he's not thirsting after anything other than increasing the value of his assets. And to me, it's really obvious. Anybody who's followed Arsenal for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you can see that our owners are playing this very badly. Now there's a sudden panic. Arsenal are bottom of the league. Let's spend a lot of money. It's panic stations. This is firefighting. And I think it'll work. I think personally we will get up to mid-table, but I don't think any further. Then is Kroenke really going to spend big money and bring Mark Overmars over? I doubt it. And I think we're just going to, but we're going to trundle along like this, not looking very good, not playing very well, fans being very upset. I mean, if you remember was it not that long ago that you went down to the stadium and there was a big Cronky out demonstration? Well,
Yeah.
that's faded away. You
Yeah.
know, I can see that starting again. But this is not how you run any business or any company. It's we're kind of lurching drunkenly across the road like a drunk driver, you know, crashing into things. Oh, let's spend a load of money. Oh, let's get a new coach. Oh, and it's this. There's nobody with their hand on the tiller who, to change metaphors, who really has a football passion and at least a bit of a football brain. He does. Cronky doesn't know what he's doing. He's placating the fans, and now we've spent a whole chunk of money. I mean, just let me give one example. Who thought in Arsenal that Pepe was worth £72 million? That's pounds. That's not euros. Pounds. Who thought that? Who saw him play? I mean, I've looked at footage, and of course, footage on YouTube can make anybody look good. Can make my granny look like a wonderful footballer. But I did notice that he did his best work in that final third, and we don't get the ball to him in the final third. So who signed him and then thought this is the guy? He'll button up that right hand side of the pitch as an inverted winger. He's been, by and large, incredibly average, not good enough, and certainly I'm not even sure I would have paid half the £72 million that they paid for him. So Arsenal's recruitment has been patently very average to poor. And as we've said before, you get teams like Leicester who seem to unearth these gems of players and they train them up. And it is possible. But at the moment, I don't think. I mean, if you think about it, Edu came in as the South American expert. Absolutely. But then we had the disaster of Raul Senlehi, who was the senior partner. And people might remember back about 2 years ago while Raul was still with us, there was an interview with him and Edu looked like the sort of little boy who just sort of stumbled into the room and was being asked a few questions, you know. And the big master there was Raul. It's pathetic, and we've now got Edu. I mean, I cut him a bit of slack because his English isn't perfect, and sometimes he looks as though he's groping for a word. But maybe his English is better, and he just can't. He doesn't come across as being a man that is a master of his job description. And you know, if you keep buying players that are not worth I mean, we spent a lot of money on this goalkeeper. We've spent big money. Now, if you look at all the goalkeepers, all the big clubs, most of them are big guys, apart from Jan Oblak, who's at Athletic Madrid, who's 6'2". All the rest are 6'4", 6'5". They're all big guys. Nick Pope, for instance, is a big guy as well. You know, and this guy's, I think he's 6'2", 6'2.5". You know, does he dominate the area? My God, we need a goalkeeper that can come out for crosses. And if you've got big guys in there like Lukaku, and you're going to play a 6-foot centre forward against him, then make sure you've got a goalie who's confident and dominates the area. It just looks like a mess. And I'm sorry to be a downer on this, but it's slightly not humorous. Nobody wants to laugh. Well, everybody else is laughing at us, but it's almost laughable even from our point of view. What are you doing? How are you going to dominate, match up against these big centre forwards? And every club, or a lot of clubs, have these guys. Lukaku, I know he's a top player. He made us look distinctly average, shockingly average. We couldn't even put a game up to Brentford. So, if I'm being honest, I think long term, I don't think Arteta will stay. I really don't. And I do like him as a coach, but I think it's all got a bit too much for him. And I think we'll probably do okay at Norwich. Burnley are a difficult team to play against. All my friends who go to all the away games, they hate going to Burnley. They say it's the The accommodation for away supporters is awful, and we often have trouble getting even a draw there. And then we've got Tottenham. I mean, it could all go very wrong very, very quickly. And then we're going to see this wonderful club of ours scrabbling around, trying to find a manager, and then trying to find an awful lot more money because this new manager probably won't want half of the players we've spent all the money on.
Yeah. James, very quickly, Mark Overmars.
Well, to give people a lot of information, because they seem to think that he only did this job at Ajax. He did an even better job in the same role at Go Ahead Eagles, where he finished his career. They were literally staring into the abyss, and he managed to pull them back with sensible business decisions. He always has his finger on the pulse with regards to buying and selling. But one thing I want to make clear to Arsenal fans who seem to think that he is the knight in shining armour. Here in the Netherlands, every professional football club has to hand their books into the Dutch FA, where they get supervised. And if they find out that a club has been living beyond their means, you can receive sanctions, which range from fines to points deductions to your professional license being revoked. So you have to work in a specific parameter here in this country. Obviously, in the Premier League, it's a little bit different. Overmars was always very complimentary about Arsenal. Always said about how he loved playing at Highbury in particular, and the home games, even warming up before, and the fans were the atmosphere. But he would take a long time to go through what is the current squad. And Tel makes a great point. A new manager coming in, he maybe doesn't want these players, maybe doesn't even know half of these players. But when you don't look and when you don't study players, when you just buy players that only one club are after, you're not in a transfer bidding war. Arsenal just seem to go off on off the cuff and sign players where their character's completely wrong. But fans lap it up because they've got drip or social media clout. I know I keep going back to it, but I'm trying to get people to understand. Mark Albrighton at Leicester has made over 200 appearances for Leicester, cost £2.5 million. Has won the Premier League, has won the FA Cup, and has won the Charity Shield with Leicester City. He wasn't a bit part player, he was an important player. Those balls over the top from Vardy that he provided, they didn't just fall out of the sky, they were pinpoint passes. And then Arsenal fans have the audacity to say to me, oh, Reece Nelson's better than him. Reece Nelson hasn't even got a career, and his loan move isn't exactly a very sensible one. But yet Mark Albrighton is reaping the rewards. How on earth he's never played for England, I don't know. But when you try to explain to certain Arsenal fans, it goes straight over their head. Because they're only interested in the price tag. They're only interested in the clout. They love getting interaction from the player, regardless of what the player has done. I know times change and society changes. We were brought up, and as I've said before on this podcast, all three of us could give footballing reasons as to why we love the players that we love. Now it's not, oh, do you remember that goal away to Villa? Oh, do you remember that goal at home to Borussia Dortmund? Now it's, oh, he liked my tweet. Oh, he gave me a thumbs up. Who cares? We need to start coming away from that placating younger fans, because I firmly believe that fan base is scattered. We have only ever knew Wenger, that certainly never see us win in Europe, certainly never seen us win the league, only know the Invincibles, and then the other fans that have experienced George Graham, Stuart Houston, Pat Rice, Bruce Rioch, Unai Emery, and that's why the fans are not united. When this goes south even more, and we're around 14th, 15th, 16th, I wonder if the fans have got the resolve to stand together. And the thing I worry about the most is do these players have the stomach for the fight? I don't think they've got the stomach for the fight. I really don't. But yet they will leave the club being eulogised. They will leave the club being eulogised from my man, when he could be partly responsible for helping us to get relegated for the first time. So I like Terry. We're just going to ride out this season and see what happens. But yes, it's important to be positive, but it's also important to tell the truth. It's also important to tell the truth. In my interviews, the entire summer, Arsenal fans have been lapping up every single transfer link, loving it. They absolutely love it. But I try to explain to them in my interviews, do you know what it is like for a player where a transfer doesn't turn out to be what he expected it to be? Where a player becomes disillusioned with the game, falls out of love with the game, turns to boredom, alcohol, gambling. What about these facets? And when you try to explain to Arsenal fans about that, they're not interested. I know my interviews are very holistic, and I know I focus on the human part of footballers because it's vitally important. It really is. And I just think that we're just in a position now where we're just trying to think that that one buy, oh, it's going to be all right. Football's moved on from that. If you look at Leicester, they have suffered a tragedy, but yet the guy who took over is honouring his father by making sure that he fulfills the dream of his father to get that football club in the best and healthiest possible position. If you look at Braga, from the big three, Portugal have made progress. Why? Because they've got a president who's hell bent on success, even revamping the training grounds. Players like Tin Shao, who's on loan from Barcelona at Wolverhampton. Players like Neto, they came through that youth set up at Braga. That's where they came from. So the football fans loving Tin Shao, we come on Barcelona. Yes, he's come on loan for Barcelona, but he was made at Braga. Not at Benfica Sporting of Porto, Braga. So it just goes to show the difference. But I think people forget how long a football season actually is. And we're just going to have to buckle in for the ride. We're just going to have to buckle in. You know, the League Cup represents our best chance of a trophy. Let's go for that. We haven't won it since '93. Why not try to win it? And then try to get through the season in one piece. But mind you, I said the same last season. And it's funny how people say about a new manager going to change everything. Well, Unai Emery came in, and Unai Emery wanted to test players. And he's got every right to do so. All these fans that were saying, oh, English rubbish, how many languages do they speak? But he had every right to test and challenge players. And what did those players do? They up sticks and left. So rather than accept his coaching methods, rather than learn something from him, they decided to up and leave. Where he's not. Koscielny played over 300 times for Arsenal, ups and leaves because he doesn't want to be told by Unai Emery what he's got to do. He's saying, oh, my Achilles and my career and all that. No, Unai Emery challenged him, and rather than meeting that challenge, he goes to Bordeaux and many other different players as well. Unai Emery has gone on to achieve success with Villarreal. In his first season at Arsenal, finished fifth and got us to our first European final for 13 years. How far away are we from that now? And we sacked him to be in the position we are now. If we hadn't sacked him, we'd be much further on. I know that's easy to say, but it's true. To go on to win a European trophy with Villarreal, this is a village of 50 people. It's not a city of 9 million. And he achieved success with Villarreal, and they came very close in the Super Cup as well. A very competent manager. And he was added for what we've got now. And we're just only slowly going to start to get worse. And I worry. I worry for this season. For the people saying we can't go down, oh, yes, we can. And if you look at 3 performances of this season, every single opponent wanted it more. Even Brentford, they wanted it more and they got it. Chelsea and Man City, they wanted it more and they've got it. Are they ready for the fight on Saturday? Are they? Because they've got to be. But I get the impression, guys, that the players will think I'm going to be all right. Doesn't happen what happens. Doesn't matter what happens to me. The players think that they're going to be all right. Well, what about the club? You know, they signed for the club. You know, living the London life and all that. It's wonderful. It's a privilege to play for this football club. But we are in a really tight spot, and we've just got to ride it out like a big storm. And I see a lot of Arsenal Twitter talking about fake positivity. It's important to be positive, but you've got to tell the truth. It's very important. With my interviews, guys, I could sit there and make out every player to be Lionel Messi, but every single player has a story to tell. And I've got a responsibility to make that story and give it the possible line of truth that I can without having to resort to gloss over things, really going deep and really going in hard. And it's important. And I like to think that people enjoy the interviews. But I just think Arsenal fans at the moment, especially the younger generation, they don't seem to realise the severity of the position the club are in.
I remember seeing some footage of Don Howe because he managed Arsenal for a short period of time in the 80s. And I remember one footage he was saying that as much as these players will fight for the cause at Arsenal, they're just not good enough. And I remember the snippet he said towards the end that he would, if it was within his power, to hold back their wages for that game. I can't remember which game it was. Come Saturday, do you think the players really are going to be up for the fight, Till, against you?
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, to be honest, somebody said a while ago that Tierney was thinking of leaving, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, if you take Tierney out of that, I don't really rate any of the rest of our defenders. Certainly not. They're not at Tierney's level. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you'd be left with a very average defence, So the thing about Arteta is I think he overcoaches. And there comes a time, and every coach will know this, where you stop coaching, you stop filling the players' heads with too much stuff, and you let the players have a meeting. George Graham did it a few times when things went wrong. Let the players talk it through. Let the players say, right, we're going to turn this round. And it is about passion. I mean, I've seen Arsenal play some great matches where their passion to keep going. The famous one people might remember is the FA Cup final against Manchester United, when we were comprehensively outplayed, and my son was with me. He was only young at the time, and he said, "Dad, it's not looking good," And I said, "Listen, while it's 0-0, anything can happen. Anything. It's a final." And we pulled Dennis Bergkamp back into midfield for most of the game, and we somehow got through to a penalty shootout. But that was passion. That was drive. When's the last time any of us saw that? We have Aubameyang standing there. Now, this may be to do with Arteta's tactics, and he's not receiving the ball. And unless you're playing him through, he's not the quality player that we know he can be. It just seems to me Arteta's got to stop some of this coaching and filling their heads up, because it's not working. And he's got to throw it back onto the players. At the end of the day, if you take whichever 11 players are fit enough and our best players to play against Norwich's, surely we've got a better set of players that can beat them. But it's about passion. And the one thing Arsenal have had over the years is passion and drive and never say die attitude. I remember being at a match with my brother-in-law, and he's a Liverpool supporter, and we were on the North Bank, and we were playing Sheffield Wednesday, and it was 1-1 with 20 minutes to go. And my brother-in-law was teasing away, and he was going, "Oh, this is typical." He said, "You bring me all the way down here to Highbury, and it's just a 1-1 draw." And I said, No. This team can fire at any moment. And there was only 20 minutes left, and the final score? Arsenal 5, Sheffield Wednesday 1. So that was a team that just never said die. Now, are we going to have that at Norwich? Because if we do, we could do well. But actually, we've got to end game now. I think for Arteta, this is now end game. And he either turns round, and it won't be through any more tactical variations. We've had enough of those. What he needs now is to find the button that makes this team play for each other. And of course, with the kind of crazy money these guys earn, it's very hard to deflect them from the fact that they are megastars. I did see a picture of Aubameyang. I think I put it up on our WhatsApp group, and he had a black T-shirt with a load of dollar bills on it, and something like words like "be mightily jealous because I'm so rich" or something like that. It was that purport anyway. And I remember thinking, and he had the swanky hat on and that, and I'm thinking, this is not what you should be promoting. You shouldn't be promoting, I'm a very rich man. What you should be saying is, I can do wonders for Arsenal Football Club. The fact that you have been made a very rich man shouldn't be the first thing you say, because young kids will watch that and they'll go, well, football's all about getting incredibly rich, and that's all it is. And it isn't all about that. I used to go and watch Arsenal reserves. I lived around the corner, and as well as the first team, I'd go and watch the reserve team. I saw all these players come through as young kids, and I loved watching the reserves play. So it's not just about the sort of glory moments in the FA Cup finals. Lads, get out there at Norwich, up in the East Anglia. Get out there and show your passion, or the cannon's too heavy for you. And I'm afraid that might be the case, because when we saw Bergkamp, despite his wonderful world-class skills, he put in a shift in every game. Are these players going to put in a shift? That's my question.
I just received a message from my mum. She says to say hello to you.
Oh, hey. Well, I did send you some statues from Ireland, pictures of statues. So it's a very religious country. Well, it isn't actually, but they've still got some of the statues left.
All right, let's go into the live chat. Let's see if we can wrap this up inside an hour. We've got like 8 minutes. So let's go to the live chat and see who has joined us. So Goodalicious Breed TV, which is one of our moderators. Good evening, David. Says, welcome to All Cannon Foy TV, a home for Arsenal fans. And yes, we welcome other fans here too. Enjoy your time here. Get your views across. But please be respectful of other people and their opinions. Well said indeed, David. Well, my goodness, like a London bus, you wait for a moderator and two comes along. We've got another moderator in the live chat. Ashley says, hey up, Gooners. Who do I have here? Imowi Peter says, Eltel looks amazing. Thank you for that. Ellie says, how are you people? Any questions? No questions? Let's have a look. What's this one? Lokonga for Arsenal, for me, was the best signing this window. I believe he will become a real baller at Arsenal, but likely to move on if Arsenal are still in the mud. Thoughts, James? Lokonga.
Do we need ballers? Is that what we need? A baller's going to get us out of a relegation fight. A baller's going to get us out of a relegation fight. I maintain everyone has their own opinion and they're entitled to it. And on this platform, among others, we are respectful. But if you're looking for a midfielder and you see 3 goals in 80 games, you'll think, I'm going to have a look and see who else is out there. But again, Arsenal paid £20 million. £20 million, 3 goals in 80 appearances. It doesn't really add up too well, does it? And Nuno Tavares as well. He hasn't even played 50 games for Benfica. I think he's played about 35. So again, we don't seem to scout. We seem to be easily led, whether that's inside the club with, I know a player and this and that. We need to start looking at how other clubs go about their business, and we need to start making unpopular decisions. But I've been saying this for the past 2 seasons now. And I look at someone like Pedraza from Villarreal. Nobody's probably ever heard of him. Played for Leeds, played for Betis, played for Alaves. He's a wonderful footballer. But no, don't worry about him. We'll sign Tavares instead. But as I say, it's in a game of opinions. But, I think one thing I've tried to say to people on different platforms as well, people love to go with the crowd. Love to go with, he's a brilliant footballer. And when somebody else comes with another player, like what I do with Albrighton and James Ward-Prowse, Brian Linton of Feyenoord, so be it. People will automatically say, "Oh, we're not good enough for Arsenal," but they're brilliant footballers that would do a job for Arsenal. But no, we seem to want to waste our money instead.
Valdez says it is not possible for Arteta to lose the next 3 games unless the players themselves want him out. The truth of the matter is Arsenal need an experienced coach to take her to a heyday level. Tell.
Well, you see, what we don't know, but we can half suspect by adding up what we see. What we don't know is his attitude in the dressing room. Now, if he's, from what we can see, he has trouble with players who need a certain type of handling. He's had trouble with Saliba. He's had trouble with several other players who are young, and he sent them away. And I think he's got to learn how to deal. Listen, you're going to have players front you up in the dressing room. You're going to tell them off after a match. They're going to front you up. Now, there are ways of dealing with that, and anybody that's worked with young people like you and I have, Alex, we know how to deal with that. You don't have to start kicking people out the door to show that you're in charge. And sometimes an arm around someone's shoulder and a nod and saying, "Look, I understand you're upset. Let's chill for a while." There's 1,000 things you can do, and I do worry that he's having a little bit of trouble with some of these players. He's certainly not motivating Aubameyang, and I'd be reminding him that it's not about money, Aubameyang, because you've got a chance to be an Arsenal hero for all time. Forget the money. You've got enough money. Get out there on the pitch. But then you need Aubameyang, and this is what I would do. I would say to Aubameyang, how do you want the ball played to you? Let's get you be in charge now. Listen, there's nothing wrong in being a leader who says to the people you're working with, at times, let me see what you'd do. Let me hear your ideas. Good leaders do that. And, we don't seem to have a system that will work well. So it's almost as though that Arteta's got a system in his head, and then he's stuck with these players. So he's determined to make this Pep 2, if you like, Pep Guardiola version 2 system work. Okay, he wants that tippy-tappy build from the back row, all this business. He wants that to happen, but he hasn't got the players that can make it happen. And he's got to do what he did when he first came in, which is say, let me look at the players I've got and let me adapt a system that will make this work. And that worked very well because we used to let teams come on to us instead of playing a high line. Let teams come on to us and then ping the 40-yard, 50-yard pass into green grass behind the opposition defenders and have Oba running onto it. There are ways of doing this that I'm not seeing him do. So he's struggling with man management and his tactics. I think he's in a whirlpool of tactical ideas. And I think the players are just confused. When you're teaching people, you can give them too many ideas and allow them. When I was working with Tim, times when he'd be coaching, he'd say, now I want the players to work out the rest. I don't want to overcoach. I want the players. They've got to do the thinking on the pitch. So you can only lead them so far, and don't keep filling their heads with so many ideas and all these triangles, and because it's not working. It's patently not working. So hand it more into the players and say, come on, lads, you're playing Norwich. You can do this, but let them have plenty of say in how they're going to turn this round. Otherwise, as you say, it could all go very badly wrong for Arteta very quickly. And I think that's a shame because I've always been impressed by his tactical know-how. But it does look as though Arsenal have come a club too soon for him. He should have gone off and made all his mistakes elsewhere. But that's the way the cookie crumbles,
Newton says, I hope Conte comes and buys good players. Well, if he comes, he won't have a war chest. All the money's been spent. So, it's already going to be handicapped. The Assembled says... Sorry, go on, James. Go on, James.
people talk about a war chest. We've just spent 150 million in the middle of a pandemic. In the middle of a pandemic where people are struggling, where money is tight, we have just spent 150 million. I would say that we've spent at haste. And what is it they say? Spend at haste, repent at leisure. And that's what we're going to end up doing. That is what we're going to end up doing. Some of these players need to be spoken to as if they are children, because they act like children. Terry makes a great point about Aubameyang, but Aubameyang is eulogised. He can do no wrong. But herein lies my point. If I sent away AC Milan due to disciplinary problems, those problems dog you at St Etienne and Dortmund, who give you a tough time and read you the riot act. What do Arsenal do? Roll out the red carpet. And therein lies the crux of the problem. Therein lies the crux of the problem. What we need is we need to go through, but I mean, I said it the last 2 seasons, go through the team with a fine tooth comb, get rid of who you can get rid of. Don't mess around with contracts, because Xhaka abusing the fans, giving the fans the V-sign. What is his 5-year contract? Brilliant, eh? That is his reward. It's the same as Daniel Ballard, helps to get Blackpool promoted. And what is his reward? We just need to ride this out. It's like riding a vehicle where you're riding into the abyss and you've got to let it disintegrate. And only then can you pick up the pieces and find out what's going to happen. But a part of our fan base, guys, it's all about them. It's about what they think, what their influencer thinks, how much money a player costs, how much interaction he gives to an Arsenal fan on Twitter. In the real world of football, this is not important. In the real world of football, time is the one commodity that we don't have. That was said to me by the current manager of Queen's Park Rangers, Mark Warburton. And he explained to me in my interview with him, he's had a couple of transfer windows now, and they're building and they're improving. And he wants to keep it going. And look how well Queen's Park Rangers are doing. But, oh no, Arsenal is, we've got to do things a different way. We have appointed an inexperienced manager because he was an ex-player. Well, George Graham was also an ex-player, but George Graham was at Millwall. George Graham managed in British football at the lower leagues before attempting to manage Arsenal. He did it lock, stock and barrel. So my advice is to the fans is don't get angry if we don't win on Saturday. Don't go and abuse players and managers, because this will be the norm. This is simply not a case of turning it on and we're going to start winning 5 games in a row. Yeah. We've got players with characteristics who only seem to think about themselves. And that is also reflected in the fan base of younger fans only thinking about themselves, not willing to learn and listen to opinions of the older fans and elder statesmen. It's very much a sign of the times. So my advice to Arsenal fans is just ride this season out, see where we finish, and just try to get through the season in one piece.
We've come to an end, people. I did say I wanted to keep it inside an hour, but I'm like just 3 minutes and a few change over the time. There was one more comment I just quickly want to show Terry, and this comes from the Assemble Terry, and he says, LTL, do you remember when it was said that Forest were too good to go down?
Oh my God, I do. This is the Nottingham Forest, who under Brian Clough won 2 European Cups. And then Brian, unfortunately, if you read the stories about him, he just lost it a bit, and he got on the drink, and he was his team lost it, and his team went down. And that's a tragedy for one of the greatest managers never to manage England. And it does happen. And where are Forest now? When you think about it, Forest, exactly. 2 European Cups, and we haven't even won 1. So yes, it can happen. And I would hate to see it happen. But I'm very, very worried that if Arteta doesn't turn it around within the next 3 games, if we stay with him, that by the time we get to Christmas, it'll be too late, I would have thought, to get a decent manager in, because no top manager wants to be seen to go down with a relegated team. So Arteta will probably then stay, and then it's in the lap of the gods. I still think we're probably too good to go down, but yeah, the assembled is right. They said that about Forest, because
Yeah.
Forest played a pure football. Brian Clough
And Lee,
didn't like, people challenging the referee and all of that game playing. So it is possible, and we could all be looking on our maps, sat navs, to find Barnsley in places next season.
All right, guys, I'll call this one to an end, actually. It's been good to have James back on the channel. James, very quickly, any interviews you want to talk us about? Very quickly.
yeah, well, obviously, Alan Smith has just been released. For Arsenal fans that haven't checked out my interview with Alan Smith, recent interviews include the likes of Ramon Bego, who played for Switzerland, Cagliari and Tottenham. Also, Mark Halsey, former Premier League referee. Upcoming interviews include John Solarco, Richard Snakers, and a few surprises in between. So, looking forward to what's coming up, and onwards and upwards, as I say.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So nice one. So like I said, it's been good to have the likely lads back on Canon 42. But like I said, it won't be every Monday, because LTEL's got someone to sort out, make an offer to someone they can't refuse. And James has got his interviews to do, so it won't be, the Canon project won't be every Monday. It'll be the odd Monday. But anyway, yeah, on an evening where we just spoke about everything related to Arsenal, I tried to keep it positive, but with positivity comes the reality. We're not too good to go down. But anyway, guys, it's been good to have you guys back on Canon 40 TV, and anyone else, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You will see me tomorrow morning for my ills, for my sins. Yeah, just talking about Arsenal again. And you guys actually have been listening to Canon for the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world.